Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, Journey into the Spiritual World. Hoping we can stay there. Hare Krishna. We just had a whole big festival this weekend with guest sannyasis and seminars and dramas, and it was a whole thing, you know. So everybody's, hope, recuperating from the... Yeah. Yeah, I heard about it, you know.
I laughed so much.
I've become a caveman in my old age. That's all I can do is to keep my voice together. Okay. Okay, we're in the middle of the pastime of Dhruva Maharaj. It's some of our favorite pastimes of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. But first let's read Srila Sanatana Goswami's glorification. Wonderful glorification of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, as we do every night. It goes like this. Sarva Shastra Dipiyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarvalokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwan Doditaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Shri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshaksharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madhika Bando Matsangin Madguru Mad Mahadana Mad Nistaraka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhuta dayin adini chochata kada hanamuncha gadachin mam premnarit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Beginning with Canto 4, Chapter 8, beginning with text 64. Narada Muni has instructed Dhruva Maharaj in the forest after testing him, right? Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Vrindavan. Hare Bo. And now he's decided to go back and see how his father's doing, the king. And that's where we're picking up from yesterday. Text 64. The great sage Narada inquired, "My dear king, your face appears to be withering up, and you look like you have been thinking of something for a very long time. Why is that? Have you been hampered in following your path of religious rites, economic development, and sense gratification?" Purport. The four stages of advancement of human civilization are religiosity. Oh, doctor, we have a. Oh, this is here. Watch the chair. Okay, you can take it in. Okay. That you have to take that chair. It's yours, the one in the corner. Would you rather sit on the floor or a chair? Okay. Congratulations, Dr. Bhakti, Guru Bhakti, for your sterling festival that you put on.
We had an excellent team.
I know, yeah, but you were the inspiration behind it, I know that. Hare Krishna. She's my special medical well-wisher. Saved me at least 2 times from death or worse. Hare Krishna. You're happy to know everything. My schedule is fixed. The reading's going fantastic. Did 44 pages this morning, and of sterling quality. But it's working. Okay, again, text 64. The great sage Narada inquired, "My dear king, your face appears to be withering up, and you look like you have been thinking of something for a very long time. Why is that? Have you been hampered in following your path of religious rites, economic development, and sense gratification?" Purport. The 4 stages of advancement of human civilization are religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and for some, the stage of liberation. Narada Muni did not inquire from the king about his liberation, but only regarding the state management, which is meant for advancement of the three principles: religiosity, economic development, and sense gratification. Since those who engage in such activities are not interested in liberation, Narada did not inquire from the king about this. Liberation is meant for persons who have lost all interest in religious, ritualistic ceremonies, economic development, and sense gratification. Text 65. The king replied, "O best of the Brahmanas, I am very much addicted to my wife, and I am so fallen that I have abandoned all merciful behavior, even to my son, who is only 5 years old. I have banished him and his mother, even though he is a great soul and a great devotee." Purport. In this verse there are some specific words which are to be understood very carefully. The king said that since he was very much addicted to his wife, he had lost all his mercy. That is the result of becoming too affectionate toward women. The king had 2 wives. The first wife was Suniti, and the second was Suruchi. He was too attached to the second wife, however, so he could not behave well with Dhruva Maharaj. That was the cause of Dhruva's leaving home to perform austerities. Although as a father the king was affectionate toward his son, he minimized his affection for Dhruva Maharaj because he was too much addicted to the second wife. Now he was repenting that both Dhruva Maharaj and his mother, Suniti, were practically banished. Dhruva Maharaj went to the forest, and since his mother was being neglected by the king, she was therefore almost banished also. The king repented, having banished his boy, for Dhruva was only 5 years old, and a father should not banish his wife and children or neglect their maintenance. Repentant over his neglect of both Suniti and her son, he was morose, and his face appeared withered. According to the Manusmriti, one should never desert his wife and children. In the case where the wife and children are disobedient and do not follow the principles of home life, they are sometimes given up. But in the case of Dhruva Maharaj, this was not applicable, because Dhruva was very mannerly and obedient. Moreover, he was a great devotee. Such a person is never to be neglected. Yet the king was obliged to banish him. Now he was very sorry. 66. My dear Brahmana, the face of my son was just like a lotus flower. I am thinking of his precarious condition. He is unprotected, and he might be very hungry. He might have lain down somewhere in the forest, and the wolves might have attacked him to eat his body. Are you coming in?
He will be waiting here, Maharaj.
Huh?
He will be just sitting here.
Well, you can come in. There's plenty of space here.
I'm comfortable if it's okay with you.
It's okay with me if it's okay with you. Text 67. Alas, just see how I was conquered by my wife. Just imagine my cruelty. Out of love and affection, the boy was trying to get up on my lap, but I did not receive him, nor did I even pat him for a moment. Just imagine how hard-hearted I am. 68. The great sage Narada replied, My dear king, please do not be aggrieved about your son. He is well protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although you have no actual information of his influence, his reputation is already spread all over the world. Purport. Sometimes when we hear that great sages and devotees go to the forest and engage themselves in devotional service or meditation, we become surprised. How can one live in the forest and not be taken care of by anyone? But the answer given by a great authority, Narada Muni, is that such persons are well protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sharanagati, or surrender, means acceptance or firm belief that wherever the surrendered soul lives, he is always protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is never alone or unprotected. Dhruva Maharaj's affectionate father thought his young boy, only 5 years old, to be in a very precarious position in the jungle. But Narada Muni assured him, You do not have sufficient information about the influence of your son. Anyone who engages in devotional service anywhere within this universe is never unprotected. Text 69. My dear king, your son is very competent. He will perform activities which would be impossible even for great kings and sages. Very soon he will complete his task and come back home. You should know that he will always spread your reputation all over the world. Purport. Here in this verse, Narada Muni has described Dhruva Maharaj as Prabhu. This word is applicable to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes the spiritual master is addressed as Prabhupada. Prabhu means the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Pada means post. According to Vaishnava philosophy, the spiritual master occupies the post of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or in other words, he is the bona fide representative of the Supreme Lord. Dhruva Maharaj is also described here as Prabhu because he is an Acharya of the Vaishnava school. Another meaning of Prabhu is master of the senses, just like the word Swami. Another significant word is Sudushkaram, very difficult to perform. What was the task that Dhruva Maharaj undertook? The most difficult task in life is to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Dhruva Maharaj would be able to do that. We must remember that Dhruva Maharaj was not fickle. He was determined to execute his service and then come back. Every devotee, therefore, should be determined that in this life he will be able to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by that process go back home, back to Godhead. That is the perfection of the highest mission of life. Text 70. The great sage Maitreya continued, the king Uttanapad, after being advised by Narada Muni, practically gave up all duties in relation with his kingdom, which was very vast and wide, opulent, like the goddess of fortune, and he simply began to think of his son, Dhruva. Text 71. Elsewhere, Dhruva Maharaj, having arrived at Madhuvan, took his bath in the river Jamuna, and observed fasting in the night with great care and attention. After that, as advised by the great sage Narada, he engaged himself in worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. The significance of this particular verse is that Dhruva Maharaj acted exactly according to the advice of his spiritual master, the great sage Narada. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti also advises that if we want to be successful in our attempt to go back to Godhead, we must very seriously act according to the instruction of the spiritual master. That is the way of perfection. There need be no anxiety over attaining perfection, because if one follows the instruction given by the spiritual master, he is sure to attain perfection. Our only concern should be how to execute the order of the spiritual master. A spiritual master is expert in giving special instructions to each of his disciples. And if the disciple executes the order of the spiritual master, that is the way of his perfection. Text 72. For the first month, Dhruva Maharaj ate only fruits and berries on every third day, only to keep his body and soul together. And in this way he progressed in his worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. Kapita is a flower which is known in Indian vernacular, as kayeta. We do not find an English equivalent for the name of this flower, but its fruit is generally not accepted by human beings. It is eaten by monkeys in the forest. Dhruva Maharaj, however, accepted such fruits not for luxurious feasting, but just to keep his body and soul together. The body needs food, but a devotee should not accept foodstuffs to satisfy the tongue in sense gratification. It is recommended in Bhagavad Gita that one should accept as much food as necessary to keep the body fit, but one should not eat for luxury. Dhruva Maharaj is an acharya, and by undergoing severe austerities and penances, he teaches us how one should execute devotional service. We must carefully know the process of Dhruva Maharaj's service. How severely he passed his days will be shown in later verses. We should always remember that to become a bona fide devotee of the Lord is not an easy task, but in this age, by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, it has been made very easy. But if we do not follow even the liberal instructions of Lord Chaitanya, how can we expect to discharge our regular duties in devotional service? It is not possible in this age to follow Dhruva Maharaj in his austerity, but the principles must be followed. We should not disregard the regulative principles given by our spiritual master, for they make it easier for the conditioned soul. As far as our ISKCON movement is concerned, we simply ask that one observe the 4 prohibitive rules, chant 16 rounds, instead of indulging in a luxurious eating for the tongue, simply accept prasad offered to the Lord. This does not mean that with our fasting the Lord should also fast. The Lord should be given foodstuff which is as nice as possible, but we should not make it a point to satisfy our own tongues. As far as possible, we should accept simple foodstuff just to keep the body and soul together to execute devotional service. It is our duty to remember always that in comparison to Dhruva Maharaj, we are insignificant. We cannot do anything like what Dhruva Maharaj did for self-realization, because we are absolutely incompetent to execute such service. But by Lord Chaitanya's mercy, we have been given all concessions possible for this age. So at least we should always remember that neglect of our prescribed duties in devotional service will not make us successful in the mission we have undertaken. It is our duty to follow in the footsteps of Dhruva Maharaj, for he was very determined. We should also be determined to finish our duties in executing devotional service in this life. We should not wait for another life to finish our job. Jai Prabhupada ki Jai. Text 73. In the second month, Dhruva Maharaj ate only every 6 days, and for his eatables he took dry grass and leaves. Thus he continued his worship. Text 74. In the third month he drank water only every 9 days. Thus he remained completely in trance and worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who was adored by selected verses. Text 75. In the fourth month, Dhruva Maharaj became a complete master of the breathing exercise, and thus he inhaled air only every 12th day.
Breatharian. That's actually a thing.
In this way, he became a breatharian. No. Had to get in your plug there. In this way, he became completely fixed in his position and worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 76. By the fifth month, Dhruva Maharaj, the son of the king, had controlled his breathing so perfectly that he was able to stand on only one leg, just as a column stands, without motion, and concentrate his mind fully on the Parabrahman. Text 77. He completely controlled his senses and their objects, and in this way he fixed his mind, without diversion upon anything, upon the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. The yogic principles of meditation are clearly mentioned here. One has to fix one's mind upon the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead without diversion to any other objective. It is not that one can meditate or concentrate on an impersonal objective. To try to do so is simply a waste of time, for it is unnecessarily troublesome, as explained in Bhagavad Gita. Text 78. When Dhruva Maharaj thus captured the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the refuge of the total material creation, and who is the master of all living entities, the three worlds began to tremble. Purport. In this verse, the particular word Brahma is very significant. Brahman refers to one who not only is the greatest, but has the potency to expand to an unlimited extent. How is it possible for Dhruva Maharaj to capture Brahman within his heart? This question has been very nicely answered by Jiva Goswami. He says that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the origin of Brahman. For since he comprises everything material and spiritual, there cannot be anything greater than he. In the Bhagavad Gita also, the Supreme Godhead says, I am the resting place of Brahman. Many persons, especially the Mayavadi philosophers, consider Brahman the biggest, all-expanding substance. But according to this verse and other Vedic literatures, such as Bhagavad Gita, the resting place of Brahman is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just as the resting place of the sunshine is the sun globe. Srila Jiva Goswami therefore says that since the transcendental form of your Lord is the seed of all greatness, he is the Supreme Brahman. Since the Supreme Brahman was situated in the heart of Dhruva Maharaj, he became heavier than the heaviest, and therefore everything trembled in all the three worlds and in the spiritual world. The Mahat Tattva, or the sum total of the material creation, is to be understood to be the ultimate end of all universes, including all the living entities therein. Brahman is the resort of the Mahat Tattva, which includes all material and spiritual entities. It is described in this connection that the Supreme Brahman, the personality of Godhead, is the master of both Pradhan and Purusha. Pradhan means subtle matter, such as ether. Purusha means the spiritual spark, living entities who are entangled in that subtle material existence. These may also be described as Para-Prakriti and Apara-Prakriti, as stated in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna, being the controller of both the Prakritis, is thus the master of Pradhan and Purusha. In the Vedic hymns also, the Supreme Brahman is described as Antak Pravishtak Shasta. This indicates that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is controlling everything and entering into everything. The Brahma Samhita 535 further confirms this. Andantarasta paramanu chayantarastam. He has entered not only the universes, but even the atom. In Bhagavad Gita 10:42, Krishna also says, Bishtabhyaham idam Krishnam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead controls everything by entering into everything. By associating constantly with the Supreme Personality in his heart, Dhruva Maharaj naturally became equal to the greatest, Brahman, by his association, and thus became the heaviest, and the entire universe trembled. In conclusion, a person who always concentrates on the transcendental form of Krishna within his heart can very easily strike the whole world with wonder at his activities. This is the perfection of yoga performance, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 6:47. Yoginam api sarvesham. Of all yogis, the bhakti yogi, who thinks of Krishna always within his heart and engages in his loving transcendental service, is the topmost. Ordinary yogis can exhibit wonderful material activities known as Ashtasiddhi, 8 kinds of yogic perfection. But a pure devotee of the Lord can surpass these perfections by performing activities which can make the whole universe tremble. Interesting, in the 11th canto of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Krishna explains to Uddhava the source of mystic perfections. And he describes that the qualities of Krishna, when a yogi meditates on one of those qualities and perfects the meditation of that one quality, then he acquires that quality. Oh, we need to move this chair. Is he coming or not?
Yeah.
He is? Yeah, move this chair over here. Move Tulsi a little over here. Help her with the chair. Giriraj Maharaj is on his way, so we're just rearranging some furniture here so that he can have his chair, seat. Hare Krishna Maharaj. Oh, huh?
He went to his room, he's not come back yet.
Yeah, he hasn't come back yet. Have you been hoarding him? Is that what's been going on? I thought so. I thought so. Oh, Haribol. Haribol, Neela. So, I suppose he'll come. All right. Anyway, I was just about to say that in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, Krishna explains to Uddhava that the source of these mystic perfections is actually Krishna, in the sense that when a yogi meditates perfectly on one of Krishna's qualities, then he acquires that quality. You know? So if you meditate on how Krishna is all-pervasive everywhere, then you can go anywhere you want very quickly. What happens is, Krishna grants to that person a little drop of his own mystic potency. Because he's Yogeshwar, he can do anything. He can be anywhere, and he can be everywhere. He can be lighter than the lightest, he can be heavier than the heaviest, he can be smaller than the smallest, he can be greater than the greatest, all at once, all at the same time. He's in every atom of every universe. It means to him there's no space in between him and something else. So if you meditate on that quality, then you can reach your hand out and grab whatever you like from anywhere. It's not that your arm, like goes like one of these sci-fi movies and goes out and then grabs someplace and then comes. No, the place that you want to go comes easily within your grasp by that mystic perfection of meditating on Krishna. So whatever you want, just meditate on Krishna. And Dhruva Maharaj is approving it practically. He's become heavier than anything by meditating on Krishna completely. Okay. Text 79. As Dhruva Maharaj, the king's son, kept himself steadily standing on one leg, the pressure of his big toe pushed down half the earth, just as an elephant being carried on a boat rocks the boat left and right with his every step. Purport. The most significant expression in this verse is Partivarbhaka, son of the king. When Dhruva Maharaj was at home, although he was a king's son, he was prevented from getting on the lap of his father. But when he became advanced in self-realization or devotional service, by the pressure of his toe, he could push down the whole earth. Maharaj, please, your seat is waiting. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
You're coming in just at the right time because you wanted to hear about Dhruva Maharaj's perfection.
I did.
Well, you already missed him, breathing air once every 12 days. And anyway, he started with just taking a little fruit berry every 3 days, and then every 7 days, and then every so many days taking a breath, and finally held his breath, and he became so heavy the whole universe is trembling. That's where we're at. Narada went to see the father, and the father's in lamentation, complete lamentation, because he's meditating on what he did to his son. Not very nice. Now Narada's there, pacifying him. Don't worry, your son's pretty well protected. Okay.
Amazing story.
Oh yeah, it's an amazing story. I'm going to read this verse so that you can hear it again. As Dhruva Maharaj, the king's son, kept himself steadily standing on one leg, the pressure of his big toe pushed down half the earth, just as an elephant being carried on a boat rocks the boat left and right with his every step. Purport. The most significant expression in this verse is Partivarbhaka, son of the king. When Dhruva Maharaj was at home, although he was a king's son, he was prevented from getting on the lap of his father. But when he became advanced in self-realization or devotional service, by the pressure of his toe, he could push down the whole earth. That is the difference between ordinary consciousness and Krishna consciousness. In ordinary consciousness, a king's son may be refused something, even by his father. But when the same person becomes fully Krishna conscious within his heart, he can push down the earth with the pressure of his toe. One cannot argue, how is it that Dhruva Maharaj, who was prevented from getting up on the lap of his father, could press down the whole earth. This argument is not very much appreciated by the learned, for it is an example of Nagna Matrika logic. By this logic, one would think that because his mother in her childhood was naked, she should remain naked even when she is grown up. The stepmother of Dhruva Maharaj might have been thinking in a similar way, since she had refused to allow him to get up on the lap of his father. How could Dhruva perform such wonderful activities as pressing down the whole earth? She must have been very surprised when she learned that Dhruva Maharaj, by concentrating constantly on the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart, could press down the entire earth, like an elephant who presses down the boat on which it is loaded. Text 80. When Dhruva Maharaj became practically one in heaviness with Lord Vishnu, the total consciousness, due to his fully concentrating and closing all the holes of his body, the whole universal breathing became choked up. And all the great demigods in all the planetary systems felt suffocated and thus took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. When hundreds of persons are sitting in an airplane, although they remain individual units, they each share in the total force of the airplane, which runs at thousands of miles per hour. Similarly, when unit energy is identified with the service of the total energy, the unit energy becomes as powerful as the total energy. As explained in the previous verse, Dhruva Maharaj, because of his spiritual advancement, became almost the total heaviness, and thus he pressed down the whole earth. Moreover, by such spiritual power, his unit body became the total body of the universe. Thus, when he closed the holes of his unit body to firmly concentrate his mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the units of the universe, namely all the living entities, including the big demigods, felt the pressure of suffocation, as if their breathing were being choked. Therefore, they all took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they were perplexed as to what had happened. This example of Dhruva Maharaj's closing the holes of his personal body and thereby closing the breathing holes of the total universe clearly indicates that a devotee, by his personal devotional service, can influence all the people of the whole world to become devotees of the Lord. If there is only one pure devotee in pure Krishna consciousness, he can change the whole consciousness of the world into Krishna consciousness. This is not very difficult to understand if we study the behavior of Dhruva Maharaj. I have an example. When Srila Prabhupada was making one of his world tours, and he was in Geneva, and an arrangement was made by Yogeshwar, I think it was. He's very expert. He made an arrangement, or was it in Paris? It was Paris.
Yeah.
No, there was two. There was one in...
Sure, it was Paris. If it was Geneva, it was Guru.
Guru Garanga. But anyway, one of those places, or in both of those places, there was a special arrangement made for him to be received as a special person of state. There were two incidents. I hope I don't mix them up. But anyway, in one of them, in both of them, he acted like no one else had ever acted before in such a situation. You know, the arrangement was when the representative of the mayor came in, then the guest would stand up. But Prabhupada didn't stand up. He just sat there. And everybody was just tense, you know, because he was supposed to stand up. That's the protocol. But he didn't stand up. So finally, the guy who was the representative of the mayor was forced by time to read the things that he was supposed to say nice about Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada sat there and he listened. And then as soon as he finished, then Prabhupada stood up. And there's a picture that's taken where Prabhupada's standing there with his hand on the desk behind where he was sitting, and he looked like this regal, aristocratic, saint. And this guy was looking like this, He's kind of like this, and it looked like he was greeting him rather than vice versa. And then Prabhupada stood up and he gave this scathing lecture to everybody about what real management and administration and leadership means. And they were forced to take it. It was mystical. But so that's just an example of what it means here, that when a devotee becomes a pure devotee, he can act different than anyone else. And Prabhupada also, of course, here we are, Houston, Texas, Radha Lane, in this room, hearing about Krishna with, advanced devotees of Krishna. How is this possible?
Prabhupada's potency.
Prabhupada's potency, it says right here. If there is only one pure devotee in pure Krishna consciousness, he can change the total consciousness of the world into Krishna consciousness. And it's just beginning. Text 81. The demigod said, "Dear Lord, you are the refuge of all moving and non-moving living entities. We feel all living entities to be suffocating, their breathing processes choked up. We have never experienced such a thing. Since you are the ultimate shelter of all surrendered souls, we have therefore approached you. Kindly save us from this danger." Purport. There's a chair over here, Chaitanya. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Hare Bo. Purport. Dhruva Maharaja's influence, attained by executing devotional service unto the Lord, was felt even by the demigods, who had never before experienced such a situation. Because of Dhruva Maharaja's controlling his breathing, the entire universal breathing process was choked. It is by the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that material entities cannot breathe, whereas spiritual entities are able to breathe. Material entities are products of the Lord's external energy, whereas spiritual entities are products of the Lord's internal energy. The demigods approached the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the controller of both kinds of entities, in order to know why their breathing was choked. The Supreme Lord is the ultimate goal for the solution to all problems within this material world. This is the kind of faith we need to spread Krishna consciousness. The demigods approached the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the controller of both kinds of entities, in order to know why their breathing was choked. The Supreme Lord is the ultimate goal for the solution to all problems within this material world. In the spiritual world, there are no problems, but the material world is always problematic. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the master of both the material and spiritual worlds, it is better to approach him in all problematic situations. Those who are devotees, therefore, have no problems in this material world. Vishwam Purna Sukhayate, Chaitanya Chandramrita, Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur. Devotees are free from all problems because they are fully surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For a devotee, everything in the world is very pleasing because he knows how to use everything in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Text 82. The Supreme Personality of Godhead replied, My dear demigods, do not be perturbed by this. It is due to the severe austerity and full determination of the son of King Uttanapad, who is now fully absorbed in thought of me. He has obstructed the universal breathing process. You can safely return to your respective homes. I shall stop this boy in his severe acts of austerities, and you will be saved from this situation. Purport. Here, one word, Sangatatma, is misinterpreted by the Mayavadi philosophers, who say that the self of Dhruva Maharaj became one with the Supreme Self, the personality of Godhead. The Mayavadi philosophers want to prove by this word that the supersoul and the individual soul become united in this way, and that after such unification, the individual soul has no separate existence. But here it is clearly said by the Supreme Lord that Dhruva Maharaj was so absorbed in meditation on the thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that he himself, the universal consciousness, was attracted to Dhruva. In order to please the demigods, he wanted to go himself to Dhruva Maharaj to stop him from this severe austerity. The Mayavadi philosophers' conclusion that the supersoul and the individual soul become united is not supported by this statement. Rather, the supersoul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, wanted to stop Dhruva Maharaj from this severe austerity. By pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one pleases everyone. Just as by watering the root of a tree, one satisfies every branch, twig, and leaf of the tree. If one can attract the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one naturally attracts the whole universe, because Krishna is the supreme cause of the universe. All the demigods were afraid of being totally vanquished by suffocation, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead assured them that Dhruva Maharaj was a great devotee of the Lord and was not about to annihilate everyone in the universe. A devotee is never envious of other living entities. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 8th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled Dhruva Maharaj Leaves Home for the Forest. Bhagavatam is like this huge drama. We had a drama last night. But this is like the biggest drama, and now we've gone just through another act. Or act? What is it? What's a canto? It's chapters, act, because the pastime is the act. Anyway.
Well, there's a lot of different dramas in the Bhagavatam.
Yes, a lot of dramas and a lot of acts and a lot of... Yes, yes. Okay. Should I go on?
Yes.
Okay, it's unanimous. Well, anybody who doesn't want me to go on, raise your hand. Okay, it's unanimous. We just set a record, 27. 27 devotees today. Hare Krishna. Okay, chapter 9. Dhruva Maharaj returns home. Text 1. The great sage Maitreya told Vidura, when the demigods were thus reassured by the personality of Godhead, they were freed from all fears, and after offering their obeisances, they returned to their heavenly planets. Then the Lord, who is non-different from Sahasra incarnation, got on the back of Garuda, who carried him to the Madhuvan forest to see his servant, Dhruva. Purport. The word Sahasra refers to the personality of Godhead known as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. Although the Lord appeared as Chirajakashai Vishnu, he has been described here as Sahasrashirsha Vishnu, because he is non-different from Garbhodakashai Vishnu. According to Srila Sanatana Goswami, in his Bhagavatamrita, the Sahasrashirsha personality of Godhead who appeared at that time was the incarnation known as Prishnigarbha, who created a planet known as Dhruvaloka for the habitation of Dhruva Maharaj. Text 2. The form of a Lord, which was brilliant like lightning, and in which Dhruva Maharaj, in his mature yogic process, was fully absorbed in meditation, all of a sudden disappeared. Thus Dhruva was perturbed, and his meditation broke. But as soon as he opened his eyes, he saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally present, just as he had been seeing the Lord in his heart. Purport. Because of his mature position in yogic meditation, Dhruva Maharaj was constantly observing the form of the Personality of Godhead within his heart. But all of a sudden, when the Supreme Personality disappeared from his heart, he thought he had lost him. Dhruva Maharaj was perturbed, but upon opening his eyes and breaking his meditation, he saw the same form of the Lord before him. In the Brahma Samhita 538 it is said, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Bilochanena, a saintly person who has developed love of Godhead by devotional service, always sees the Lord's transcendental form of Shyamasundar. This Shyamasundar form of the Lord within the heart of a devotee is not imaginary. When a devotee becomes mature in his prosecution of devotional service, he sees face to face the same Shyamasundar he has thought of during the entire course of his devotional service. Since the Supreme Lord is absolute, the form within the heart of a devotee, the form in the temple, and the original form in Vaikuntha, Vrindavan Dham, are all the same. They are none different from one another. Text 3. When Dhruva Maharaj saw his Lord just in front of him, he was greatly agitated, and he offered him obeisances. When Dhruva Maharaj saw his Lord just in front of him, he was greatly agitated, and offered him obeisances and respect. He fell flat before him like a rod, and became absorbed in love of Godhead. Dhruva Maharaj, in ecstasy, looked upon the Lord as if he were drinking the Lord with his eyes, kissing the lotus feet of the Lord with his mouth, and embracing the Lord with his arms. Purport. Naturally, when Dhruva Maharaj personally saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face, he was very much agitated in awe and respect. And it appeared as if he were drinking the entire body of the Lord with his eyes. The devotee's love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so intense that he wants to kiss the lotus feet of the Lord constantly, and he wants to touch the tips of the toes of the Lord and constantly embrace his lotus feet. All these features of Dhruva Maharaj's bodily expression indicate that upon seeing the Lord face to face, he developed the 8 kinds of transcendental ecstasy in his body. Text 4. Although Dhruva Maharaj was a small boy, he wanted to offer prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in suitable language. But because he was inexperienced, he could not adjust himself immediately. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, being situated in everyone's heart, could understand Dhruva Maharaj's awkward position. Out of his causeless mercy, he touched his conch shell to the forehead of Dhruva Maharaj, who stood before him with folded hands. Purport. Every devotee wants to chant the transcendental qualities of the Lord. Devotees are always interested in hearing about the Lord's transcendental qualities, and they are always eager to glorify these qualities, but sometimes they feel inconvenienced by humbleness. The personality of Godhead being situated in everyone's heart specifically gives a devotee intelligence to describe him. It is therefore understood that when a devotee writes or speaks about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his words are dictated by the Lord from within. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, 10th chapter. To those who constantly engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord from within dictates what to do next in order to serve him. When Dhruva Maharaj felt hesitant, not knowing how to describe the Lord for want of sufficient experience, the Lord, out of his causeless mercy, touched his conch shell to Dhruva's forehead, and he was transcendentally inspired. This transcendental inspiration is called Brahmamaya, not Maya, Brahmamaya, because when one is thus inspired, the sound he produces exactly corresponds to the sound vibration of the Vedas. This is not the ordinary sound vibration of this material world. Therefore, the sound vibration of the Hare Krishna mantra, although presented in the ordinary alphabet, should not be taken as mundane or material. So we'll stop here, the reading tonight. And can I say one anecdote before we open it up? In New York, in 1976, there was one, I think it was a journalist or a professor or somebody that was brought to Prabhupada by Ramaswar Prabhu. And so the person was asking Prabhupada, it was kind of like an interview, and he asked him, so you're the guru? And Prabhupada said, yes. And he said, where do you get all this knowledge from? And he said, I get it from Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then Ramaswar kind of, not butted in, but he kind of, wanting to, the person that he was cultivating, not to feel too, inconvenienced, he said, what he means to say is, and he was going to say something that, because, I don't know what he was going to say, but Prabhupada cut him off, and he said, no, I told you, Krishna tells me. That's how I get this knowledge. Directly, he talks to me and tells me. And then Ramaswar was like, he didn't know what to do. Anyway, that was an example how Krishna speaks through, and these purports, Okay, so let us have our time of reflection, and anything that stuck in the mind from the reading, or reflections, or discussion, or questions, or whatever. Yes, Carter is going to start it off tonight. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
I was wondering if Dhruva Maharaj was the only devotee that was ever able to perform the universal breathing meditation. Thank you.
He's the only one we know of. And that too as a boy of 5 years. Inconceivable. For anyone, but more so for a boy of 5 years.
Yeah, when Arjuna asked Krishna to show him his universal form, Krishna did, and then Arjuna was sitting in one place, and he could see everything within the universe, past, present, and future, at the same time, sitting in one place. And then Krishna told him, no one has ever seen this form before. So Krishna can do that. He can show someone something that's never been seen before, or a devotee can do something that never been done before. And then just to reinforce what Maharaj just said, what we're going to find out is that Dhruva Maharaj then got a planet personally created for him by the Lord, which was in the purport we already read. And it was greater than Brahma's planet. And it was a spiritual planet within this material world. And even when the material world is dissolved, it doesn't become dissolved. Anybody else? Any takers? Here it is, the little bumblebee microphone. It's all yours. Just for the price of a reflection. Hannah, I can't imagine that she would want to have something to say. Go ahead, Hannah, here. You earned it by that comment.
I think she's
what was that? What was that?
breatharian.
Breatharian. Breatharian. Breatharian. That was a good one. Okay.
We think, realization, we think we have so many options, but really, there's only two: Krishna or Maya.
Very good. Maharaj, I liked it too much. What do you think?
Essential truth spoken
Precisely,
precisely
is
is
true eloquence. Prabhupada gave in the example, there's sunlight and there's shadow. Of course, you can be half in the sun and half in the shadow if you situate yourself just perfectly. But you're either in the sun, that part of your body is either in the sun or in the shadow. There's no in between. There's no gray area between the line of the sun and the shadow. Either Krishna or Maya. And he also said that just as Krishna is all-pervading, so is Maya. So you can be in the temple room in front of the deities and be in Maya. It's possible. Yes. Matthew is going to give us the benefit of this.
This is also just a realization. There's the offense of explaining the glories of Krishna to someone unwilling to listen, and we were just reading in that purport that a devotee always enjoys speaking of and hearing the glories of Krishna, so that's another reason to associate with devotees.
Oh yes, I had a purport to back up what you just said. This is Prabhupada's words to back up what you just said, just to show you that you're realizing, you're getting realizations, Krishna consciousness. It's the 3rd chapter, verse 29. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, the verse is like this: Prakriter guna samudha sajanti guna karma su tana kritsna vidomandan kritsnavin navichalayet. Bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material activities and become attached. But the wise should not unsettle them, although these duties are inferior due to the performer's lack of knowledge. But in the purport, Prabhupada says this profound statement: men who are ignorant cannot appreciate activities in Krishna consciousness, and therefore Lord Krishna advises us not to disturb them and simply waste valuable time. But the devotees of the Lord are more kind than the Lord, because they understand the purpose of the Lord. Consequently, they undertake all kinds of risks, even to the point of approaching ignorant men to try to engage them in the acts of Krishna consciousness, which are absolutely necessary for the human being. So even though it's a fact that we don't try to preach the intimate glories of Krishna to a person who may say something offensive, as Jesus said, don't cast pearls before swine, same idea. But sometimes when we're in public place and we're giving lectures, or like that, and there may be more than one person in the room, and somebody may not be qualified, but we glorify Krishna anyway. We take that risk.
I need another person for
Absolutely, Maharaj. Absolutely. Here, I'll hold this one again.
No, can't take service from you. This is the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Chapter 18, Conclusion, the Perfection of Renunciation, text 67. Idam te natapaskaya na bhakatya kadachana na chasur susave vachyam na chamam yo vyasuyati. This confidential knowledge may never be explained to those who are not austere or devoted or engaged in devotional service, nor to one who is envious of me, Krishna. Purport. Persons who have not undergone the austerities of the religious process, who have never attempted devotional service in Krishna consciousness, who have not tended a pure devotee, and especially those who are conscious of Krishna only as a historical personality, or who are envious of the greatness of Krishna, should not be told this most confidential part of knowledge. It is, however, sometimes found that even demoniac persons who are envious of Krishna, worshipping Krishna in a different way, take to the profession of explaining Bhagavad Gita in a different way to make business. But anyone who desires actually to understand Krishna must avoid such commentaries on Bhagavad Gita. Actually, the purpose of Bhagavad Gita is not understandable to those who are sensuous. And then Prabhupada continues in the next purport, which generally, it is advised that Bhagavad Gita be discussed amongst the devotees only. For those who are not devotees will understand neither Krishna nor Bhagavad Gita. It is a subject matter for devotees only, and not for philosophical speculators. Anyone, however, who sincerely tries to present Bhagavad Gita as it is, will advance in devotional activities and reach the pure devotional state of life. As a result of such pure devotion, he is sure to go back home, back to Godhead. And elsewhere, Srila Prabhupada says that although the Bhagavad Gita is meant to be spoken only to these categories of persons, the devotee, knowing the purpose of the Lord, sometimes speaks in an open assembly, knowing that there may be someone who is sincere and who can benefit from the message, even though there are others who aren't qualified to hear it. But the devotee takes that risk to serve the mission of the Lord.
All right. This question is from Vrindavaneshwari Devidasi. Quotes. As far as possible, we should accept simple foodstuff just to keep the body and soul together to execute devotional service. Quote. I've been told to take care of yourself and able to continue doing devotional service. However, I've seen devotees run themselves into fatigue states, skipping meals and no rest. Is it appropriate to try to remind devotees to take care of themselves even if they are senior?
Absolutely, especially if you're a mother like you. Vrindavaneshwari. You know her? The wife of Krishna Katha. She was initiated here this last summer. Gina. Bhakti Gina is now Vrindavaneshwari. Yes, Vrindavaneshwari, you should advise even us if you see us misbehaving. Hare Krishna. But another thing I'd like to say is that, in that same purport, Srila Prabhupada said that we should cook for Krishna the most opulent possible things that you should cook. So here's a little bit of a sometimes dilemma that comes into the lives of devotees, because we can't eat like Krishna eats. And I remember when we were brand new devotees, and Prabhupada would encourage us to eat Mahaprasadam up to the neck, and sometimes that resulted in different kinds of problems. And but we should eat some Mahaprasadam, because just like Dhruva, he could breathe and make the whole universe suffocate. So we only need a little prasadam, to get the full benefit of having taken something right off the plate of. So remember when we used to give out, like rewards for devotees doing big on Sankirtan or something, whatever, some special, service. We'd give them a whole plate of Mahaprasadam. Then they'd sit down and eat the whole thing, and they couldn't serve for another, few days until they recuperated. So yeah, it's better if we eat simple. That doesn't mean we have to eat, air and become an breatharian like Dhruva Maharaj. We can't do that. But we should eat clean and simple, and Prabhupada said tasty, and simple prasadam to maintain our health, because if you don't maintain your health, then how can you do devotional service properly? Unless you're Dhruva Maharaj, and as you already pointed out, nobody is like Dhruva Maharaj. He's unique. Please. Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Vrindavaneshwari. Sometimes to instruct a senior, you can tell a story. It may be a little more indirect or more gradual. And here is one from me. you were mentioning that sometimes devotees, even senior devotees, can like run themselves into the ground by overworking. So I had that tendency, and once Srila Prabhupada told me to work very hard for 2 days and then to have to recuperate for 3 days is not a very good policy. And I also used to go long hours without eating because, we'd leave early in the, means quite early in the morning, right after breakfast, take the local train into Bombay. And then we'd be out all day meeting people, and then we'd come back at night and, maybe we'd buy some roasted chickpeas and a rolled up like a cone piece of newspaper. So one evening when I came back, it was like it was sort of the practice that I would report to Srila Prabhupada about my day's preaching. And this one evening when I went into his room, he asked how I felt. And, as a matter of course, we usually just say, fine. And especially in front of Srila Prabhupada. But when he asked, I really thought about it, and I didn't feel that good, actually. And he said, then he had his servant bring some grapes from his pantry. We didn't get many. The only fruit we got, if we got any, was from the deity's Maha plate. And he gave me grapes from his own hand. And he said, these are very good for energy. So he didn't say, you shouldn't go so long without eating, but, by his example and care, he did show that we have to take care. And the last bit of story that you can cite, if it serves your purpose. I was, I got sick, I think similar, in the early days in India, probably overworking and undereating. And Srila Prabhupada wrote me a letter saying, if you're feeling tired, you may take rest. Your body is very valuable. It is dedicated to Krishna's service, so you must take care of it very nicely. And the best course is to follow the doctor's prescription and chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. The Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is Bhavoshadi, the panacea for all material ailments. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol. Okay. Sure, why not? This is from the cyberspace? Okay.
Jai Shri says, follow-up.
Hare Krishna Jai Shri.
Follow.
Jai Shri is in Hong Kong, I think.
Follow-up question. When we cook for the deities, should we consider what devotees love to eat, which may be very opulent and not exactly good for one's health? Your servant, Jai Shri.
No, we should cook what Krishna likes. We should find out what Krishna likes from our spiritual master and the acharyas and the shastras, and we should cook what he likes. And then, as I heard Prabhupada say actually just yesterday, he was in Denver actually, and he was talking about, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was there, and they were talking about diets and how devotees were getting into really extreme kinds of diets and not taking any prasadam because it was unhealthy. And Srila Prabhupada said, no, you have to cook for the deities, most opulent, just what he likes. And then you can cook simple things for the devotees, and offer them to the Lord. But what goes on the deities' plates in the Rajbhog offering directly to the deities in the plates, that should be the most opulent things and the things that just Krishna likes. So that way we can both eat healthily, and at the same time we can get the remnants of the Lord and get the spiritual benefit. So both, it's not one or the other. But we definitely shouldn't select things to cook for the deities that are the devotees' favorites. We shouldn't do that.
I can add one point.
Yes.
That eating opulent food might be unhealthy physically, but it can also affect one psychologically. And there was one instance in Bombay, in Juhu, where two devotees had a big fight with each other. And they both went running up to Srila Prabhupada to complain about the other. And Srila Prabhupada commented that that the reason they were fighting is because they were both eating too much Mahaprasad. Because it can bring on the mode of passion.
Okay, so I have to go because I have to get up at 2 in order to do what I have to do to read. Every morning I'm reading 3 hours, Chaitanya Charitamrita for the audiobook. And it's going very well, by the way, just my report to all of you. Very, very well. And so I have to do that. So I have to take rest in the morning to preserve my voice. And that's why you don't see me around much in all these different things that are going on, because I'm really careful about my voice so that this audiobook will be perfect offering to Prabhupada, as perfect as I can make it, and for the devotees and future generations of devotees. So, but now that Giriraj Maharaj is here, he likes to stay up late. I know that about him. He'll just. I know, but I can't imitate. Just like we can't imitate Dhruva Maharaj, I can't imitate you and go to bed late and get up early and do. So I'm going to leave you in his hands. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for coming and participating in this yajna. It's a yajna. I made a vow every single night for the rest of my life without fail, except if I'm on a long haul flight. I will do this. Hare Krishna. Maharaj, Haribol.
Like usual. Oh, you have a question? Okay, we'll take one. I have some questions for you if you can wait. And I also have a question for you. What exactly is the point of my meeting fruits and nuts? Oh, we can discuss that later.